Okay. So we'll just do another check. Can everybody see? Okay, wonderful. I just got a confirmation from our staff that they can see per the broadcast and they can hear us. If anyone has technical difficulties, just send me a chat in that Microsoft Teams chat that I opened. So I think we can get started. We have 21 out of 25, and it's been a couple minutes since we started. So I just wanted to introduce our session today. I want to thank Zachary Taylor for presenting today, and also Pete Punito, who I've been working with, who is the business development representative over at First Northern Credit Union. So I want to thank you both so much today for hosting this presentation for our staff. We're going to have a presentation on retirement planning, the basics, and then we're going to have time for questions and answers. And before you ask, we are going to be recording the session today, so you will be able to view it at a later time. And once again, if you're having any difficulty with your any technical connection to this GoToWebinar, just send me a chat in the chat box. And with that, I'm going to let Pete begin the session. So take it away, Pete.
Well, that was a pretty awesome introduction, Megan. I feel like I'm getting an award, an Academy Award of some sort. So thank you, and so welcome everybody. First Northern Credit Union, we're the credit union financial partner for the city of Evanston, and we have our free monthly financial wellness webinars every month. And Zachary Taylor here, who is my counterpart, he also does business development. He is also the host of our monthly financial forum, where people can get on and ask any sort of financial question that they want. We have financial advisors on the chat as well to answer any questions. And this month, on the 16th, it's a special financial forum because we're going to have a random act of kindness. We're going to crack out our famous spin wheel, and we're going to give away some prizes. So if anybody's interested in that, you let me know. Any questions during the seminar, ask them in the chat box. I will answer them as best I can. If I can't get to them or if I don't know the answer, we will ask Zachary at the end. And I think I'm done with my introduction. Zachary Taylor, take it away.
Well, thank you both so much for that wonderful introduction. I would say thank you everyone for joining us. Of course, this is a topic that I absolutely love. I think retirement planning affects just about everyone. So hopefully you learned some new information, or at least brush up on some of the information that you may already know. What I'd like to do is take a moment and just point out the GoToWebinar. There is a handout section that has a handout that goes along with the retirement planning, completely free. You can download that and look at it at your own time. I do reference it here and there throughout the seminar, but it's not that important that you follow along with it because hopefully I'm touching the points anyways on there for you. Again, I want to preface this webinar with one other side note. Yes, we work for First Northern Credit Union and we're familiar with a lot of this stuff. However, whenever you're looking at retirement or any kind of investment, you want to do your research on there, make sure it fits for your lifestyle and what works with you. And then also, I would highly recommend, if you don't, get yourself a licensed financial investment advisor. Make sure they're licensed, because there's some out there that can call themselves advisors and whatnot, and they may not be licensed. So definitely all of that through. This is your retirement that we're talking about, which to a lot of people is one of the most important type of investments you can do. So with that being said, I hope everyone has their second cup of coffee, maybe an afternoon snack, and we're going to jump right in here. In 1 second, we're going to jump right in. I am going to turn off my webcam just because I have a lot of clicking around and I want people to follow on the slides as I talk. So with that, again, thank you for joining me. I'm going to turn this off and we're going to jump right in. Okay, so retirement planning is important, of course. So while most Americans are eligible for Social Security retirement benefits, they are only meant to supplement what you have already saved. Now, you can ensure that your lifestyle doesn't suffer. Doesn't suffer when you stop working by taking an active role in your retirement planning. So, and to be perfectly honest, in most cases, Social Security simply will not be enough to live comfortably on for many reasons, a few of which I will cover in the next slide. So with that, let's dive right in. The first thing you should look at when you're looking at retirement planning is a few challenges, so that way you can hopefully tackle that in your planning. So when planning for retirement, you want to look at various challenges that can affect the amount you need to save to live comfortably. Some of those would be, first off, more years spent not working. So over time, the average lifespan has increased more than the average retirement age, meaning retirement savings need to cover expenses for a longer period of time. Because women on average live longer than men, they especially need to be concerned with the possibility of running out of retirement savings. So you definitely want to take that into account when you are planning. Now, this is the part right off the bat where I like to do a little aside, and I like to say that if you are retirement planning and you have a partner, a spouse, any kind of long-term significant other, I highly encourage that you discuss your financial goals with your partner. And I say that just because it may seem obvious, but if one of you were to pass first or earlier than you expected, one of the worst things is for your partner to also have to deal with trying to figure out what you had going on with your retirement funds, as well as dealing with grieving and stuff like that. So I know that's a little bit of an aside, but if you have a partner long-term or anything like that, definitely sit down and go over goals and retirement plans with them as well. Okay, so the second challenge is the increasing medical costs. Of course, healthcare expenses are rising rapidly, and most people need more care as they age. Now, you can kind of combat that with, an active working out lifestyle and stuff, but of course, there are going to be medical things that come up as you age on there. So many seniors do pay several hundreds of dollars out of their own pocket for prescriptions and co-payments on a monthly basis, even after factoring in insurance and stuff like that. Two little tips I like to give everyone to kind of battle that is always ask if there's a generic that would work. Most of the time on there, the exact same ingredients as the name brand one. There's some mild differences as far as appearance and stuff like that, but if there's a generic, that's usually up to 80% cheaper than the name brand one. Now, on top of that, you can call the manufacturer of the prescription directly and see if they have any coupons that go along with it. You can always use the manufacturer coupon on top of any additional savings that you have through your CVS, Walgreens, or whoever you pick up your prescriptions from. So definitely take a look at that and see what you can do. The third one, we're going to look at rising inflation. Now, this is one of the most significant threats to a retirement savings. Over time, the value of most goods and services does increase, meaning your dollars will not go as far as they used to. So, I mean, that's pretty standard. We won't dive too deep into what inflation and stuff is on there, but bear in mind those three challenges are the three biggest that we like to talk about when you're looking at the basics on there. Okay, so how much will you actually need? So getting a realistic figure for how much you need to save for retirement does require some legwork. Luckily, there are many, many, many retirement calculators available online that can help you figure it out, and those are completely free. Now, as I said earlier, you can and should consult with a licensed financial advisor, kind of go through some of that and take away a little bit of the headache on there. Factors that you need to consider do include things such as your costs. A general rule of thumb is that retirees' expenses are 70 to 80% of what they were before retirement. However, it will vary from person to person. Your expenses may be more versus someone that may be less. So it depends on your lifestyle and what you're trying to do after you've retired. So think about how much you expect your expenses to change and when you retire. So just a few quick items that I put down on there that I talk about when I'm looking at it. So increases, luxury purchases. Maybe you've worked your entire life and, you know, when you retire, you think, okay, I want a much nicer car. That's going to increase your monthly payments on there, obviously. Again, we've already talked about medical costs, so that is an increase on there. Decreases as far as you have your property tax going down, depending when you hit a certain age, sometimes that will go down for you. Of course, gas costs, if you're not driving to an office anymore, that will lower some costs there. Insurance may go down a little bit more for you if you're driving under a certain amount of miles. So those are just a few things when I say take a look at your expenses that I'm talking about on there. So next, we're going to talk about the length of retirement. So the length of your retirement is your age of death minus your age of retirement. Obviously, your age of death is unknown ahead of time, but you can use a life expectancy calculator to estimate that. So that's something to look out. Again, that's going to be online, completely free for you to look at when you're sitting down and looking at it. Your Social Security retirement benefits. So while you don't want to rely on those benefits completely to fund your retirement, if you are eligible to receive them, you do want to factor them in as a source of income during your golden years. We already touched on inflation, but again, in retirement, because of inflation, it will cost you more each year to buy the same things. So there are, again, comprehensive retirement calculators that automatically consider inflation. So when you're looking into those, definitely take a look at an inflation calculator. And then the last one that I want to talk about on there is rate of return on investment. So your retirement savings will consist of your contributions and the return you earn on your investment. Some investments do have a fixed rate of return that is known ahead of time. Other investments have a return that varies based on market conditions or other factors, so be aware of those. Although it is hard to know exactly how the variable investments will perform in the future, one way is to estimate, to take a look at how they have performed in the past and kind of estimate off of that. I wouldn't aim any of the variable ones on a higher percentage just in case they don't go up. You want to have the most realistic expectation that you can, and then adjust as you need to. So those are a few things to look at and consider when you're trying to figure out exactly how much money you are going to need. So let's jump into my favorite part of anything to do with financial decisions, and that's creating a budget. I absolutely love it. I suggest that's the first step for absolutely anything, as simple as saving for a vacation, saving for a new car, and especially for saving for retirement. Excuse me one second, I'm going to take a quick drink of water, but then we're going to jump in on the biggest one, the budget. Okay, thank you. So successful retirement planning does require setting aside money on a regular basis. Realistically, to be able to save, your expenses need to be less than your income. Of course, that is until we finally learn how to plant that money tree in the backyard. Okay, sorry. I'm done with the cheesy jokes. We'll get right back into the budgeting there. But if you do figure out how to plant that tree, let me know. Give me a call, shoot me an email, wherever needs to be done. Okay, so are you currently spending less than you're earning? To figure it out, you can take a look at the budget worksheet, which is in the handout that I mentioned earlier. It'll be page 3. You don't have to do it right now, but later on I would encourage you to take a look at that. So if you are not sure what some of your expenses are, just use your best guess for now, and then by tracking your expenses for a few months, you can always come back and create a more accurate budget in the future. And again, I recommend on every budget, always be updating it. Once you get more comfortable and you know what's coming in, what's going out, you can update it often. But in the beginning, I would suggest updating your budget monthly or every 2 to 3 months at the very most, just because you want it to be as realistic so you can allocate funds the way that you need to. So once you have completed your budget, you should total up your expenses, subtract them from your net income. Now, if your expenses are less than your income, great. If not, look over the worksheet, think about what changes you can make to improve your cash flow. So again, with any budget, you have to be honest. If you know you get a coffee every day let's just say you're spending $5 a day, 5 days a week. That's about $25 a week, about $100 a month, et cetera, et cetera. So you know you better than I know you. So no one's going to see this. Be as honest as you can on there, and it gives you the best idea of where you can cut out funds and whatnot if you absolutely need to. So again, when you're talking about a budget, I'm not suggesting that you cut out every single extra expense you have. I mean, we all still have our needs of what we want on there. Just make sure that it fits into your budget. So maybe you go from the $5 coffee down to a basic $2 coffee. You're still getting your coffee fix, but you know you're saving a little bit on the tail end there. So that's what I'm talking about with the budget. Again, we do have budgeting classes and webinars that we do on that as well. So when you're taking a look at your budget, if you need help, you can reach out to us or you can join us for one of those webinars as well. I'm not going to dive any more into that on this one because we're just talking about retirement. So we'll skip to the next part here for you. Okay, so this is a big part. We're talking about types of retirement accounts. Before I dive into this slide any further, I do want to just get a feel for who I'm talking to here. So I'm going to launch a little fun poll. If you don't want to answer it, you don't have to, but this will just give me a little idea of what's going on here. So let's see what type of retirement investments everyone already has or if they're just starting. So I'll give it a couple minutes, then we'll close it out and we'll jump back in. But if you want to participate, just check the box for what you have going on there and we'll move on. Wonderful. Seeing a lot of people are partaking in their employee-sponsored plan. That is awesome. And I see some of you have additional on the outside of that. So that's great. About 90% of the people voted, so I'm going to go ahead and close that out. But now that I've got a good idea on there, I do appreciate that. That helps me focus on what I'm talking about on here, okay? All right. So let's take a look at that first one that a lot of people already said they have on there, and that is going to be the employee-sponsored retirement plans. Now, there are two basic types of employer-sponsored retirement plans. You've got the defined benefit plan, in which a certain level of benefits is promised, and it is the employer's responsibility to fund it. And then we've got the defined contribution plan, in which the employee makes defined contributions and there is no guaranteed payout. Now, employers generally let employees determine how much they want to contribute per paycheck, and some even match all or part of their employees' contributions. Today, the defined contribution plans are much more common than the defined contribution plans are much more common than the defined benefit plans. So by that, I mean the 401ks, 403bs are examples of the defined contribution plans. The money that you contribute is deducted from your paycheck pre-tax, meaning you don't have to pay state or federal taxes on it. While your money is invested in the plan, you don't have to pay taxes on earnings either. You only pay taxes on the withdrawals you make. I'm going to do another aside real quick because I think this is a very important point that I like to point out for people. I know it's not really part of the basics, but I love it. So one major item I always like to point out is that employer match does not count towards your yearly cap that you can put into your pre-tax on retirement accounts. For example, in 2020, the max contribution for your 401k was $18,500. Now, again, this doesn't count the employer's match. So you can put in that full $19,500, and anything they match is icing on the proverbial retirement cake. So a lot of people may not know that. If you did, fantastic. And a lot of us may not reach that max anyways, but it's a fun fact to know on there. Okay, so I did see some of you have some IRA plans on there, so we're going to talk about that. The second one, we're going to look at individual retirement accounts, which are also known as IRAs. Those are retirement accounts that are not tied to your employer. You can open one at a variety of financial institutions, such as us at FNCU, other banks, mutual fund companies. So you're looking at like Schwab, Fidelity. anything along those lines, there's a lot of different people that offer those. Now, in order to contribute to an IRA, you or your spouse must have earned income, of course. The two most common types of IRAs are the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. I'm going to break that down in just a second for you. So, like with the 401ks and 403bs, you do not have to pay income taxes on the contributions made to or in plan earnings of a traditional IRA, only on the withdrawals. Now, that's the big difference. So traditional, you don't have to pay the taxes on the contributions or in plan earnings. You do have to pay taxes on the contributions you make to a Roth IRA. However, earnings grow tax-free in the account, and you do not have to pay taxes on the qualified withdrawals. So that's the big difference between traditional and Roth. Again, I'm going to mention that you should speak to a licensed financial advisor on there, but I would recommend having a traditional as well as a Roth, even if some years you're not going to contribute to either or either one on there. It's a good thing to have either one. I say that because Roths are taxed initially on there and traditionals are pre-tax, meaning that some years you can actually beat inflation by putting more into a Roth versus your traditional. So that's a great little fun fact. Again, do your research on that. It's not going to work for everyone. If you're not, active in it, then lean more on your financial advisor. But if you're really hands-on, like I like to be, then it can be a great tool to earn you a little bit more in the long run on there. So one of the downsides of an employer-sponsored plan is that the investment options are typically limited. By that I mean your employer picks, the predefined packages and what it can be included on there. A lot of them may be a little bit more lenient and let you make different decisions on there. But in contrast, with an IRA, you can invest in whatever you would like to. So you also don't have to worry about what to do with your IRA when you leave your job. You don't have to worry about rolling it over or anything like that. On the other hand, you don't have the benefit of automatic payroll deductions or matching employer funds. And contribution limits are higher for employee-sponsored plans than IRAs. You can contribute to both at the same time, but contributions to a traditional IRA are not deductible if you are covered by a retirement plan at work and your income is above a certain point. Now that point varies and it can change over years, so definitely look that up yearly to make sure that you're not going over and eating some fees and stuff that go on there. So we're not going to talk about it today, but there are different ways of putting money into Roth and moving it over into your traditional. It's called like a back end rollover. But we're not going to go into that because we're going over basics on this. So next, we'll look at the self-employed retirement plan. So if you are self-employed, you still can contribute to a traditional or Roth IRA, but there are also retirement plans specifically for the self-employed and small business owners and employees, such as the Simplified Employee Pension, also known as SEP plan, your Savings Incentive Match plan for employees, or Simple Plan as that's known as, or just a solo 401k. So there are several different options if you're self-employed, if you want to still, plan and invest in your retirement, which I highly recommend. So again, do your research on levels there. Do your research on how you personally like to invest. I know personally I do the employer sponsored, but I also have a traditional and I have a Roth, and I like to be very active in it. So I will change where those funds are going and how the dividends reinvest. You don't have to do that, but the more hands-on you are, to me personally, because I like to do the research, it helps me feel better about my retirement on there. Okay, so now that we've talked about the three different main types of retirement accounts, let's take a look into the types of investments that you're making inside of these investments. So again, we're going to look at three. There's three basic types of investment classes where you can put your retirement savings. So I think a lot of people have heard about the first one, which is stocks. A stock is a share of stock represents a percentage of ownership in a corporation. You can make money from receiving dividend payments and selling the stock for more than you bought it for. Historically, stocks have provided the highest, so greatest return long term. However, there are no guarantees, which makes it the most volatile, the most risky on there. One day your stock may be worth more than what you paid for it, the next less. So be aware of that when you're looking at stocks. It does have the potential for the highest return, but it also has the chance that you can lose money. Especially if, I know when we're looking at retirement planning, we're talking about the long term, and that's a lot different investing strategy than the day-to-day trader. I know most of us probably aren't messing with day trading. You have to have an account of at least 25,000 that you move around. It's a lot to be a day trader. So for the purpose of this, we're just going to talk about the long-term goals on there. So next, we would look at bonds. A bond is a loan to a company or government with you, the bondholder, as the lender. Now, generally, you receive the principal, called the par value, at maturity of the bond, and interest periodically while you are holding the bond. So depending on the market, you may purchase a bond below, at, or above its par value. So when I say that, I mean you could buy a $100 bond for $80 because it's below the par value, and then when it matures, you're going to instantly get that $20 difference, but you're also going to get interest throughout that. So again, that one falls kind of in the middle of volatility and risk factor, so that's kind of middle ground. You can make quite a bit of money on there if you're very highly familiar with this kind of stuff. I had a buddy in college. He retired at the age of 30 because he would switch from stocks to bonds, and he did that well enough that he was able to retire at 30. It was phenomenal. So again, the more research you do, the more active you can be in it, and the more reliable it can be on there. So next, you would look at cash equivalents. Now, when I say cash equivalents, we're talking about assets that can be readily converted into cash. So when someone says liquidity, that's what we mean, readily converted into cash, such as savings, checking account, CDs, which are certificates of deposit, money market deposit accounts, and U.S. Treasury bills. They tend to be very low risk on that. So there's little or no danger that your money will be lost when you deposit it there. You can see that on savings accounts, checking accounts, and stuff that are federally insured and stuff on there. So there's very little risk unless it all goes down on there. So as a result, cash equivalents usually provide the lowest return on that, but they are the safer option on there. So when you're looking at the three of those, if you ever go into your employee sponsored and you've got XYZ account and then a year on there, what you'll see is they kind of auto shift as you get closer to your age of retirement. They'll start off a little bit more risky, a little bit stock heavy in the beginning of when you're getting ready to retire. And then as you age and get closer to actually retiring, it shifts more into the cash equivalents. And that's just because you don't want to take a lot of risk right before you retire. You want to have that money so you can start your golden years. So if you ever get into your employee-sponsored account, that's what you're going to see. You're going to look in there and see kind of how it shifts. And again, I keep preaching this. I'm sorry, but if you're very active in there, you can actually adjust how you want your investments to go yourself. You don't have to stick specifically to the yearly set plan that you have. But that's just a comfort pick for a lot of people. Out of sight, out of mind, which is not usually an approach that I would recommend, because that is your retirement. That is your life after you're done working. So you definitely want to at least take a look into it. So with that, instead of taking several investments individually, most people, as I said, they do choose to invest into the retirement savings in a mutual fund. In a mutual fund, money from several investors is pooled to buy different stocks, bonds, and or cash equivalents. There are a wide variety of mutual funds available with different investment compositions and goals. Again, I'm going to do a little side note. There's an ever-growing in popularity option called an ETF, or an exchange-traded fund. These are to mutuals as they are diversified, but also tend to have a much lower fee set attached to it, and track the performance of specified indexes. So again, they tend to be as low as 1/10 the price of average mutual funds. As I said, we're not going to dive specifically into that or go too deep into that today, but I encourage everyone to take a look at the retirement funds, become familiar with how to view the fees on the handled funds in each part of your portfolio. I'm not saying that the lowest fees are always the best option, but it is best to take an active role again and be aware of what you're paying on there. So again, when you're looking at fees, if it's an actively managed fund and there's a specific person managing it daily, the fees tend to be a little bit higher on there. But just be aware of what's coming out of the money that you're putting in there for retirement, I guess is what I keep trying to preach on there. So as mentioned previously, for IRAs, your investment choices are virtually limitless. With a 401k or 403b, your options will be limited by your employer. As a general rule, you should invest more aggressively the further away from retirement you are. And as I said earlier, those packages tend to do that for you. But this means focusing on investments that have the potential to provide a much higher return, even if they're a little bit riskier. Again, the further out, because you can eat a couple losses if that were to happen and still have time to make that up, because you'll still be in the workforce for long enough. But as you get closer to retiring, that gives you less time to correct anything if something were going wrong. And then I know a lot of people like to preach diversity in your portfolio. So the reason they do that is they don't want you to put all your eggs in one basket. If one market goes down, it can be cushioned by a different market going up. Now, again, I like to say it again, depends on how much of an active role you're taking. If you're monitoring stuff properly, you kind of know what markets are moving in what direction. So again, yes, you would want to have a little bit of diversity, but if you know something is a strong option and going the right direction, it's okay if you do that for whatever year you're looking at on there. So that's what we're looking at for types of investments. So this is a very basic overview of retirement. So we covered some pretty good stuff on there. What we're going to talk about one last thing, and then we'll go to some questions. So, and that's really just, I know nobody checked on the poll that they haven't begun, and that's fantastic. If you're not currently saving or not saving as much as you need to or want to, don't wait to start or increase your contributions. So when I say that, a lot of people will pick a percentage of their pay that goes into the account. Again, if you weren't familiar with that, that is pre-tax. So if you do move that percentage up 1%, 2%, 3%, you're not really going to notice it as big because it's pre-tax on there. So if you want to play around and see what's comfortable for you, it usually takes about 2 weeks or a pay period or two for that adjustment to take effect. And you can, again, check with yours, but I know personally for mine, you can change that every single pay period if you want to find the percentage that feels comfortable to you. Now, again, I know everyone says this, but the earlier you start, the longer your savings have to grow. So if you started investing $200 per month now in a vehicle with an average of 5%, which is pretty mediocre and common for a rate of return on that, in 30 years, you would have $159,000 roughly in there. Whereas if you waited 5 years to start, you would only have $114,000 roughly. So you can see just in a 5-year period, because of that compounding interest and rates of return, you've already gained about $40,000 more in there off of a simple investment just because you started. And again, if 200 is a bit much that month, you know, anything you're putting in there is going to save up, it's going to build up. And again, if you're hands-on, that's great too. So with that, I would want to say you should save for your retirement even if you have debt or more immediate goals. Again, the amount that works for you is fine, but again, that's your future we're talking about. So prioritizing retirement now means you will not have to work until you're 80, hopefully. So many people aim for about 8 to 10%, but be aware, as I said, this is a percentage of your salary. Many advisors want you to put 10 to 15% to be near your goal. So again, say what you can comfortably, but most of all, do not be afraid to be hands-on and use the calculators and all the free resources that are out there. With that, we do come to an end. So I'm going to run just one more quick poll to kind of get a feel of what you guys thought of this and what I can add in future if I were to do anything else like that. And then I'll check in with Pete to see if there were any additional questions, anything like that. So let me launch this for you. And then I'll jump back on the webcam. But essentially, just how do you feel after this quick introduction? I know I had a few asides that dove a little bit deeper, but was this beneficial? Did you already know this? Did it at least refresh? Or was, you know, everything on here you already knew, which is great too. That's awesome. I'm glad you're already aware of that. So.
And Zachary, I'm going to jump in. Awesome presentation, efficient, effective with the fundamentals. I did answer a few private questions, and there's one question that just came in, something to think about when you get back online here. The question is, if I'm age 60 and I start receiving withdrawals from my Roth IRA, but then my income situation changes, can I stop? In other words, can I start and stop and start again?
Out of just Roth or just in general? So I'll cover that the best I can, but of course, always talk to your financial advisor. You guys know your plan of what you're trying to do with that. For traditional and Roth, usually you can hold back off if you're not officially retired. So if you did have to go back into work, you have to make sure you're within a set amount of hours, if you are back working, to not mess with your Social Security, your employee retirement, and traditional and Roth. There are withdrawal periods, so be aware of that as well. Once you do retire, you have to check with your financial advisor on your particular one. But I know if you don't pull out all of the money in a certain amount of time, the entire thing will actually be hit with fees as well. So make sure that if you are trying to juggle and push some off and pull some now, pull some later, that you're still within the legal limit window to withdraw all of it, to not get any kind of fees and stuff like that. So once you are of age to withdraw and everything on there, the best thing I can say is, A, find out when it all needs to be withdrawn from, because you can always withdraw it all out and then put it into like a money market or something like that if you're not going to use it all right off the bat, but at least you're still gaining X amount of interest on it while you're living off of it. But yeah, so answering that question, it's a toss-up. So it depends on who you're through and what their regulations are on there. So whenever you have a traditional or a Roth, you have a direct number with that person that goes to the management advisor for that account. And I would call them and just ask them exactly what you're trying to do, and they will answer that far better than I could, since I don't know the situation. But yes, you can, for some. So
okay, actually, that's solid. And again, I know these are just basic fundamental things, and as Zachary, I kind of want to reiterate too. Always, everybody should have a financial advisor when you want to get into the weeds of these kind of things. So Zachary, awesome. I am going to ask Megan if she has any final words that she wants to address with everybody.
Sure, I just signed back on. Can you hear me?
Yep,
we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I just sent a note to our Teams chat. If anyone has any last minute questions they'd like to ask before we sign off with Zach and Pete, please let me know. Give everybody a couple of minutes. But as we're waiting for those questions to come in, I just want to take this moment to thank you, Zach, and thank you, Pete, for putting this together. We really appreciate it. And I wanted to call out that there's another class being offered on Friday for budgeting. So all you need to do is go to the Learning Center and enroll in that class. And again, it's the same structure where you will sign up and register, and then you'll get a link to attend in the class. So I just wanted to let everybody know that's available. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any questions coming in, so I think if you would like to close the class, I think we can do that.
Okay, and so go ahead, Zachary.
I'm gonna tackle that real quick. And they were asking, at what age should a couple begin to consider purchasing long-term health care insurance? So that's just another vehicle for retirement. So I would say you would consider it is now. as soon as you consider any other retirement, it's just another vehicle. So you would look into what the benefits of putting money into that one as opposed to Roth, traditional, or your employee sponsored. There's different benefits and there's different draws from it. So I would take a look at that immediately and do it now. With any kind of retirement planning, the sooner you jump into it, the sooner you can see how it fits into your lifestyle. And if you're with a partner, maybe they have long-term health insurance and you put more into XYZ, whatever works best for your situation. But definitely take a look at it sooner than later. There's no, once you hit 45, that's when you want to invest in this. No, you want to start as soon as you can. And if you want to put just a little bit of money into that one to start off and see how it feels to you, and then you can shift and, like I said, take an active role and adjust percentages throughout your entire life. Bare minimum every 5 to 10 years, I recommend for people to readjust their investment. I do mine yearly, sometimes twice a year, depending on what the market's looking like. It's just how active you are in it.
Okay, Zachary, and I just, if there's anybody has any other questions, I put our contact information, email, and Megan has our emails as well. And we are always, we have a skeleton crew in the Evanston office, and our branch manager, Yadi, is always available. A lot of times people come in, they want to go over their credit report and they want to ask certain questions that anybody can stop in, and I'll give you that information as well. I'll send that to Megan as well. As far as wrapping this thing up, yeah, we're going to be back on Friday. Zachary, I'll let you have the final words on this, okay?
Okay, thank you so much, Pete. I'm going to touch real quick on this last question that came in, just because it's a real quick answer. Are you changing the advice that you give clients, members, anything at all because of the pandemic, i.e. hold on more to cash equivalencies, etc., take advantage of periodic market dips to invest? That's going to be like any other investment. If you are okay with taking more risk, you can play the dips, absolutely, if you're okay with taking that. So a lot of people that I personally know, and I know I was a part of it, the initial dip, I sold out on some big ones and I bought in on lower ones and they shot up 200% or more. Again, I felt I have enough room before I retire to take that risk. If you are closer to retirement, yes, as I said earlier, you want to shift towards cash equivalents as you get within the 5-year range of actually retiring. So again, that's just based on your ability to take a risk and recover if something were to go wrong. So there's no set answer on that. I do want to thank every one of you for coming and joining. I know 56% of you said you already knew this, but it was a nice refresher. I hope it incentivized you to take a little bit more active role and take a look at what you have going on there. For those of you that thought it was beneficial and you gained some knowledge, awesome. I love it. For those of you that already knew it and didn't gain much, that's okay too. Thank you for at least already knowing that and taking that incentive and preemptively knowing that stuff. So that's great too. I hope all of you do walk away with at least some knowledge or an ability to reach out and ask us questions if you need it. I hope everyone stays healthy, wealthy, and positive. So with that, that's all I have to say. Thank you all so much.
All right. We'll see you everybody on Friday.
Okay. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Megan.
Zachary. Have a good day. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Bye-bye. All right. Bye-bye. Thanks, Zachary.